Live. This is the Rich Report, bringing you the richest content across entertainment. Sorry for the voice crack. It is early in the morning. My name is Cameron Richardson, and joining me, as always, is Sean Clark. Sean, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Excited for conference championship weekend. Had a fun time down in Phoenix for NASCAR next gen testing. And excited for our weekly Fruit Loop of the Week segment because, there's a lot of Fruit Loops this week to choose from. Got a couple myself.
Joining us today, we've got Brenden Martin, sports editor of the Lumberjack, and NAZ Today reporter Michael Manny. Gentlemen, what's up?
What's up with this music? I feel so vibey right now.
Sorry, you guys weren't on the show Wednesday, were you? Or Michael was. No, Monday. Who was on the show Monday?
I was on the show Monday.
Yeah, I did this for Monday.
This is kind of a banger. But
I'm
doing,
nice.
I'm doing good. Got out of bed about 12 minutes ago. Feeling good.
Well, we got a lot to talk
basketball
about
tonight.
We got a lot to talk about today. We've got the NFL Conference Championship games. We're gonna provide an update on the next NASCAR Next Gen car that will debut next Sunday, 9 days away from the Busch Clash at the LA Coliseum. We're gonna talk about our Fruit Loops of the week. We got a handful, could have picked from a multitude for this week. So let's get right into it, gentlemen. Bengals Chiefs kicks off conference championship Sunday on CBS. Gonna have Tony Romo and Jim Nantz calling it. But this is a game that we saw in the penultimate week of the regular season in Cincinnati. The Bengals won in an absolute shootout, and I'd expect nothing less from this game this week. And it's weird because the Chiefs defense seems to pick and choose when they want to play hard. They played well in the first half pretty much against Buffalo. They only surrendered 13 points, right? It was 14-13 at halftime.
It was 14-14, but yeah.
Oh, it was tied 14-14 at half. But then obviously we got the absolute shootout and chaos that ensued in the second half and especially late in the fourth quarter. And I can make an argument that Cincinnati has a better receiving core than Buffalo has. Maybe Joe Burrow isn't Josh Allen just yet. They aren't, maybe at the same level, but when Cincinnati's offense is clicking, it can compete with any team in the NFL. And we saw it against Kansas City already not too long ago. So, Sean, is this another flip of the coin game, or is this just going to come down to experience and Kansas City's going to take over?
When the Bengals defeated the Chiefs 34-31 back in week 17, the Bengals had one thing going for them at the time, and that was an insane amount of momentum. The previous game, they came off an absolute thumping of the Baltimore Ravens, where Joe Burrow had over 525 passing yards. It's a lot of passing yards. It's fourth all time in a single game. They had a lot of momentum on their side. And usually what we see a lot in the regular season is that the great offenses sometimes are unstoppable late in the season, and in the playoffs they take a step back a bit. We got to understand that the Bengals offense has not been the most impressive this postseason. Yes, they've won 2 games. Okay, I'm not gonna take that away from them. But have we really seen the Bengals go deep a single time this postseason? Not really. We really haven't. The Bengals have been methodical and conservative. They haven't really taken those risks. The defense has been huge. But another concern for the Bengals is that they've been kicking a lot of field goals. Yes, Evan McPherson is an otherworldly stud, but he's had to kick 8 field goals. They've scored a grand total of 3 touchdowns. And one of them shouldn't have been a touchdown because of that referee blowing the whistle when Joe Burrow wasn't out of bounds. So when your field goal to touchdown ratio is 8-3, that's a problem. The Bengals have been way too safe this postseason. The Kansas City Chiefs, on the other hand, have so much experience and so much confidence in their system that Patrick Mahomes just let it rip. They just let it rip, and that's what Josh Allen did last week too. Both those quarterbacks just let it rip because they have experience in the postseason, but they also have complete trust in their system that they know exactly what to do. The Bengals have been playing it safe this postseason. Their defense has not, though. Their defense has been fantastic, holding both the Raiders and the Titans to under 20 points. But the offense has been very dink and dunk, utilizing the sidelines a lot, using a lot of yak. Jamar Chase had a massive reception against the Titans, but that was on a screen pass. Very Demaryius Thomas has taken the screen pass and just weaving through the defense for about 60 yards. But we really haven't seen this postseason Joe Burrow really chucking the ball down the field like we saw during the regular season. The Bengals have been very methodical, which is also what the Chiefs can do. But as great as the Bengals receiving core is, the Chiefs simply have more speed. You have arguably the two fastest players, maybe even three fastest players in the entire NFL, and Tyreek Hill, the cheetah. You have Byron Pringle and Mecole Hardman. If the Bengals, I would say, do have overall the best wide receiving core in the NFL, but the Chiefs have the fastest. The Chiefs overall have the fastest. And I think that speed allows them to be more methodical than the Bengals. And I just have a lot more confidence and trust in the Chiefs offense to be much more explosive, to be able to have those long drives, and to make those game-breaking plays when needed. I just don't think the Bengals have had that zip this postseason. Maybe this is the time where it happens, or maybe we wait till the next postseason for this to happen. Because obviously the Bengals are going to win the division again next year. Who on earth is going to challenge them next season? So I have a lot more confidence in the Chiefs offense, and that's why I don't really see this game being a coin flip anywhere near as much as last week was. That's why I feel like last week's game was the real AFC Championship game.
Now, Jamar Chase, who, I mean, we all know the Burrow and Chase connection, had his most receiving yards and receptions against the Chiefs back on January 2nd. He caught 11 of his 12 targets, 266 yards, like I just said, and 3 touchdowns. So how does Kansas City adjust and, stop Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow from having the connection they did in the loss back in week 17?
Well, but I'd say they gotta devote their resources on defense to stopping him. I don't know. You press him at the line. You put him in double coverage sometimes, but the Chiefs don't have the world's most talented secondary, especially with we don't know how healthy Tyrann Mathieu is going to be after the concussion he suffered last week. But even with the Chiefs defense kind of having a Jekyll and Hyde act throughout this season, going from pretty good to just historically awful. I guess historically awful at the start of the year to pretty good much of the rest of the way. I think they just can't let Jamar Chase have a good game. But then if you do that, you leave T. Higgins open, you leave Tyler Boyd available to do some damage. And they still have Joe Mixon too, who's a top 10 running back in the NFL. So the Bengals have the weapons, but Sean, you're absolutely right, is the fact that they've scored 3 touchdowns and you can't play field goals with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to get you in trouble. That's going to get you down 28-3 before halftime, which Tom Brady can come back to that, but but as great of a quarterback as Joe Burrow already is, and as great as a quarterback as I believe Joe Burrow is going to be, because I believe he's going to be a great one. I believe he's going to be top 5 in the NFL before long. You just can't trade field goals with Kansas City Chiefs, especially when you've got Patrick Mahomes waiting on the other sideline to go up the field in 13 seconds like he just did last week.
So, Brenden, would you say the main key for Cincinnati is time of possession and, not and, scoring touchdowns obviously is at a prime against Kansas City, but how important is that time of possession to keep Kansas City from getting the ball as much as possible, because obviously Buffalo struggled to do that outside of the first drive. Obviously, the fourth quarter turns into an absolute shootout. Cincinnati, I don't think, wants a shootout. They'd want to keep, time possession, run the ball successfully with Joe Mixon, and then obviously get the ball out to their star wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think not only is it a time and possession game, but it's also just a matter of fact of keeping your defense fresh against this red hot Kansas City offense that completely tore apart one of the best defenses in the league in the Buffalo Bills. Now, I mean, they won a shootout, week 17 at the very end, but that was in Cincinnati, I believe, and that was also at a time where the Chiefs, their playoff standing was pretty much set in stone. Whereas that wasn't the case with the Bengals. I think the Bengals had a lot more to play for. This time going around, you can't rely on having that happen 2 times in a row. Not against this Kansas City team that has gone to it's now their 4th straight AFC Championship game, and if they win, they're going to be on the way to their 3rd straight Super Bowl. So, I mean, clearly, I think a time of possession is huge. You want to keep your defense fresh. Obviously, you want to get up to an early lead, but even as we've seen, early leads aren't exactly the most, the thing that stand tall quite easy. But when you're going against a Kansas City team, you gotta be able to do what you can. The field goals, sure, you can get a field goal here and there depending on the situation, but you're not gonna. If you're going up against Kansas City, you're gonna need to score a touchdown here and there, and that's what they're gonna need to do. I think the running game's going to play a huge role in that. I think Joe Burrow's going to have some huge protection, which he hasn't had throughout his NFL career. And because of that, he's going to have to be mobile. He's going to have to do stuff like Josh Allen did and make some moves with his legs, which we know he is certainly capable of doing. With that being said, I just don't know how you can stop this Kansas City Chiefs team that just came off one of the biggest wins in one of the biggest games in NFL history.
Sean, final score predictions. Will Jackson Mahomes, like we said, like I have in the thumbnail, is Jackson Mahomes finally going to be stopped? Are we going to end the TikToks? Is Brittany going to stop dumping beer on fans who didn't ask for it? When's that curse going to happen? Is the curse going to start on Sunday, or are the Chiefs going to roll?
I will be shocked out of my mind if Kansas City loses this game. Honestly, this AFC Championship game feels very anticlimactic, but then again, almost anything is going to after what happened last week with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen having an elite shootout. Remember what I said?
The level of disrespect there is for Cincinnati when they just beat Kansas City the last time they played. I just don't get why this is seen as anticlimactic. Look, we'll never have a divisional weekend like we had last weekend, but does that just mean, the playoffs are dead now, don't need to watch anymore?
I didn't say that, but let's be real here. We're talking about a team that has kicked 8 field goals and scored 3 touchdowns against the Raiders and the Titans, while Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes last week had the quarterback duel of all time. I think there's a step down from what the Chiefs have to do this week versus last week. I just think that's how it is. I'm not saying the Bengals are bad at all, and I'm not saying that the Bengals aren't going to put up a good fight, but I think ultimately last week was a much tougher matchup for Kansas City because the Buffalo Bills are really their equal. The Bengals are not there yet. Remember, they were held to four field goals and 2 touchdowns against the Raiders. And let's be real here, the Chiefs are another level against the Raiders. The Bengals will win a Super Bowl this decade. You can remember that I said this. In a decade, you can pull up the footage. The Bengals will win a Super Bowl this decade. But right now, it is the Kansas City Chiefs time, and they will win. I'm going to say the score is 34-20. The Chiefs will win. The Bengals will keep it close, but I think in the fourth quarter, the Chiefs will show who the king of the AFC is once again.
Michael, do you agree with Sean that this is an anticlimactic conference championship game?
I don't think it's going to be anticlimactic. The Chiefs aren't going to run away with this. As great of a team as they are, I think it's going to be at least similar to when they played them last. And just think, if Joe Burrow has a clean pocket, I think this game's a lot closer than a lot of people are probably expecting. I mean, he got a hint. He was sacked 9 times last week and that was Don't quote me on this, but the most quarterback has been sacked and then still won the game. So even with all the punishment he's taken, he still won that game, even though they traded field goals with the Titans a lot of that game. But if he has a clean pocket, this game's going to be, I think, a lot closer than people are expecting.
Final score, Michael?
I'm going to go 34-28 Kansas City.
Close game. All right, Brenden, are we going to get an upset from you, or are we going to be unanimous on Kansas City?
I don't know what sound effect you have for unanimous. So that's the one you're gonna have to play. I go a lot of what Michael said. I don't think it's anticlimactic. I think when you compare something to the divisional round that we just saw, anything is going to feel anticlimactic in comparison. But looking at both these teams and exactly how they played each other last, it's going to be a good game. Now, Cincinnati's going to have to work a lot harder, especially against those fast wide receivers who can score in a matter of seconds, like they showed in Buffalo. But I got it being fairly close. I'm gonna say Kansas City 31, Cincinnati 24.
Whoa.
Let's move to the NFC title game. I'm gonna go, if I were to make a prediction, I'm gonna say Kansas City 38, Cincinnati 31. Let's have a shootout. Let's have some fun on Sundays. And what's not fun is the NFC title matchup we have later on in the CAP Conference Championship weekend between the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. The Rams have the opportunity to be the first team to host the Conference Championship game and the Super Bowl, although the Super Bowl doesn't count as an actual home game. Sean, this is just pure heaven for you. You love the play of both the Rams and the 49ers, especially the 49ers. Especially the 49ers.
World's
Oh,
number one 49ers fan.
We've seen this matchup twice already this season. This is the third time they're meeting. I saw something about teams that have played each other twice, and on the third time, this is like the third time that the teams have met for the third time in the conference championship game. But overall, how do the Rams bounce back and potentially upset the 49ers? Would we say this to be upsetting the 49ers? Or are we saying the Rams are the favorite because of the higher seed and at home?
I mean, the Rams just knocked out the defending Super Bowl champions in their home turf. I think that the Rams are definitely the favorites in this game. And the Rams are playing their best football at the right time. They demolished the Arizona Cardinals. Sorry, Michael. And they went to Tampa Bay, where the defending Super Bowl champions won the Super Bowl last year. And until whatever that fourth quarter was, the Rams completely dominated the Buccaneers. The Rams roster is just loaded, even with a couple injuries that they have in the secondary with Taylor Rapp and Jordan Fuller being out. That roster just has so much high-end talent wherever you look. Odell Beckham has been a marvelous addition. Von Miller is looking like a Super Bowl 50 strip sacking quarterbacks. Obviously, you still have Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams, but Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, my goodness, we talk a lot about Burrow and Jamar Chase. We talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. But is there a better quarterback wide receiver combination in the NFL than Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp right now? Because I don't think there is. I genuinely do not think that there is, even as great. Like I said, Burrow and Chase get all the attention because of their LSU combination, and they are easily a top 5. But Stafford and Kupp is the best right now. Just like back in 2011 and 2012, Stafford and Megatron was the best wide receiver combination, and every Lions fan is now nostalgic of me saying that. The fact that Stafford can throw off his back foot into tight coverage against Cooper Kupp and drop it on a dime is incredible. And Cooper Kupp just knows how to get open. Plain and simple, the dude knows how to get open. He is going to be impossible for cover, especially a 49ers secondary, which is not all that great. The 49ers the front seven for the 49ers is elite. And that front seven is single-handedly, them and Debo Samuel, why the 49ers are in the NFC title game. That front seven has created so much pressure, especially up the middle. But with Cooper Kupp, he can burn any secondary. Cooper Kupp is just that dude. I think when you look at this matchup, it's going to come down to two things. One, Oregon Duck legend Eric Armstead has been a terrorizing force as of late. He has picked up at least 1 sack in each of the last 4 games. Eric Armstead is going to be massive in who wins this game because his interior pressure is going to be huge. Can you get pressure on Matthew Stafford-Mill? Because quarterbacks always prefer to get pressured off the edge than up the middle because up the middle is a lot harder to avoid. And Eric Armstead, up the middle and even sometimes on the edge too, has been a force to be reckoned with. If he can get pressure, and if Fred Warner can really take away some of those crossing routes, 5-yard crossing routes, that's going to really throw off the rhythm of the Rams offense. But on the other side of the ball, and the other big key, look, there's been a lot of controversy this week about Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo's a very confusing quarterback.
We have a whole-on war between an old washed quarterback and one of the best analysts out there, and Mina Kimes, on Jimmy Garoppolo of all quarterbacks to argue about. Jimmy, you're really gonna die on the hill of Jimmy Garoppolo, Mr. Jeff Garcia? Really? Are we really doing this?
I don't want to hear a word about Jeff Garcia. The only reason why this guy even has a playoff victory is because he had a wide receiver named Terrell Owens, and also you were a bust in Cleveland and Tampa Bay. So shut your mouth, Jeff Garcia. That's all I got to say about that. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. The main point here about Jimmy Garoppolo is that he is a very confusing quarterback. He is very confusing. And obviously, as a Patriots fan, kind of know about this guy because he did beat the Arizona Cardinals in week 1 of 2016, but then got injured, and that was it for his Patriots career. But Garoppolo is very confusing because he's 44-15 as a starter. So the dude knows how to win. But let's be real, he almost threw away both playoff wins. He threw a terrible interception to Anthony Brown that put the Cowboys right back in that game in wildcard weekend. And dear God, some of those throws last week in Lambeau Field, dear God almighty.
Like, talk about across the field, like across hashes as like pretty much lobs that if Green Bay had either a smarter reads or a smarter secondary or faster secondary, those are like 3-4 pick sixes that, and Green Bay is running away with this game. I mean, there were some absolute garbage, just dumb decisions made. And when you go up against a Rams defense that has Aaron Donald, it's like, well, what's Jimmy G going to do in this game?
Exactly. Jimmy G cannot throw this game away because, in my opinion, the LA Rams are way too good to throw the game away. And here's the thing. He almost did exactly that 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, in preparation for the stream, I rewatched the highlights of the 49ers and Rams Week 18 game, which we've had some insane games this year. Chargers-Raiders obviously is a game that'll go down the history books. Bills-Chiefs and Rams-Buccaneers are 2 games that'll go down the history books. But how good was that Rams-49ers Week 18 game? How good was that? The Rams jumped out to a 17-0 lead. 49ers came back. They traded touchdowns late in the game. Jimmy G led a miraculous 1-minute drive, and the 49ers won in overtime, which that was a playoff game too, because if the 49ers lose that game, the New Orleans Saints would have been the playoffs and not the 49ers. So how much different would this NFC title game look like? But watching that game, guess what? Jimmy G almost threw that game away too. Because tied at 17 in the fourth quarter, the 49ers were driving. They had all the momentum. Garoppolo decides to throw a pass in triple coverage, and guess who comes up with the interception? Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey deflected the ball and intercepted it. And guess what happened on the very next drive? Guess what happened on literally the next drive? Cooper Kupp scored a touchdown. So Jimmy G cannot throw this game away. I understand that Jimmy Garoppolo has won a lot of games, but Mina Kimes is absolutely right. He is the guy who participates in a group project, doesn't do really any of the work, but still gets an A. Mina Kimes is absolutely right about that. So overall, the Rams are going to be able to use their talent in this game, but Kyle Shanahan has won his last 6 games against Sean McVay. This game really might come down to coaching ultimately, but also will Jimmy G not throw the ball away, or will the Cooper Cup get conclusion?
I'm sorry, Sean. I had to play that since you took about 10 minutes of this segment to talk over the 49ers. But in all
I
seriousness,
talked about the Rams more than the 49ers, actually.
this is the 23rd time that two teams have met in the playoffs after one of them swept the regular season series 2-0. This is per Field Yates of ESPN. 14 of the 22 teams that went 2-0 went on to win the playoff game that year. The 49ers are looking to be the 15th team. And what's weird about the Rams numbers against the 49ers is that, well, first off, did you know that Cooper Kupp's 2 worst games in terms of receiving yards came against Arizona both times? Arizona somehow solved the Cooper Kupp case, but couldn't anywhere else. Cooper Kupp
sounds about right.
Cooper Kupp was mid-pack for both San Francisco games, had over 115 in both. But the Rams had their 2 worst offensive performances in both games against the 49ers. They only had 278 when they went on the road to San Francisco on Monday Night Football. And then obviously week 18, only 265. And they were the only 2 games where the Rams had under 300 yards. So, Brenden, if you're Sean McVay, how are you calling this game offensively? Because obviously what you were doing in the first 2 games against San Francisco didn't work. So how do they go about it? Is it more maybe target Odell more and use Cooper Kupp as kind of a decoy early on, and then when the field opens up for Cooper Kupp, then that's when you pounce on them?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I think that what we saw, especially in the Arizona game, where Cooper Kupp wasn't the focal point for them. Stafford was very willing to spread the field open and make him work where at all aspects of the field, and I think that's what works best for them. And obviously, Cooper Kupp's going to find a way to get open on multiple occasions, and when that's the case, you certainly use that. But you've gone this way with all the wide receivers you have. You have Odell. You have Cooper Kupp. You have also a lot of other great wide receivers that you can turn to. You also have some pretty good pass catching running backs that you can also use as well. The whole thing about Matthew Stafford this season has been the risk versus reward. Obviously, very high risk in terms of him getting a lot of interceptions, but he'll make some great passes that only he or a select few other quarterbacks in the NFL can make. So in that case, I think that's exactly what you do. You got to spread the field wide open, give him some different looks, try and get the running game working. I know it looks like Nick Bosa is going to be ready to go, but even with him being out of concussion protocol, he's certainly, I don't think he's going to be 100%. And I think that's where you're allowed to be able to go to a Cam Akers who's had a great story, being able to come back after an Achilles injury. You're going to have Sony Michel, who's been great for this team, especially for the price that they got him for. I think that this team is going to make it work. And I think because of that, the Rams, they should absolutely be favored, despite, once again, they're probably going to be playing what is essentially a road game at SoFi Stadium with a packed 49ers contingency. And that's something that they're absolutely going to have to figure out. I think that might be the biggest hurdle for the Niners, is being able to, for the Rams, is to have, being able to get communication out, for Matthew Stafford to be able to hear play calls. That's going to be the most important thing for Los Angeles, is being able to have that communication.
Now you bring up Cam Akers, and yes, while it is impressive to come back from a devastating injury and as quickly as he did, and seems to have no real issues with his legs, it's the ball carrying that seems to be the problem for Akers. 2 fumbles against Tampa Bay. While Cam Akers has been the number 1 guy for LA, do you have to lean on Sony Michel to make some plays?
I think you do, yeah. And I think you using both of them fairly evenly would be smart right now. I mean, we can point at that Tampa Bay game, and yes, that's certainly an issue. But there were a lot of things wrong with that Tampa Bay game. There were a lot of things that went totally hog wild in that game that you can't consider an outlier. But yeah, I think Sony Michel. I think at this point, especially with Akers having been out for as long as he was, he's the guy. He's going to be that main guy. He's going to be able to do more for you. But I think the way the NFL is set up now is you got to have at least two of those guys who can consistently get you a chunk of yardage on every carry, who can consistently be an option for you in the pass game. And I think that Akers can still provide that.
Michael, have you found anything that the Rams just couldn't do successfully? Obviously, the offense is that, but what is it that just holding the Rams back from beating San Francisco so far this year?
I mean, that's the interesting thing is it is not just this year. It's the last 3 years. They have not beaten the Rams have not beaten the 49ers in 3 years. It kind of reminds me of the Cardinals streak against the Rams before earlier this year in SoFi. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo makes the plays he needs to make when he's been healthy, and even week 18 where he had the shoulder and the thumb injury. Even though he's made some of those interceptions where you just look at the TV and you're like, seriously, that's a ball you're gonna throw. But this defense has stepped up when the defense has had to, and has limited some of this team's weapons. When they last played, Cooper Kupp had a big game. They've done that successfully, and the Rams have a whole plethora of guys. They have Odell now. They have Van Jefferson. They have Tyler Higbee. And can you imagine if this offense still had Robert Woods, what it would look like? But I can't quite put a finger on what the 49ers have done so successfully in the last 3 years, but they've just had their number. It's been a shootout every time, or either that, or they've just come in and ran them out of the building like they have at Levi's sometimes in the last few years.
Well, I will go ahead and make the first prediction. D'Amico Ryans has done a stellar job, more than stellar job. And this is sort of the game that, while he's had many, I've kind of served as his interview. This is the big one right here. Can he get the 49ers to the Super Bowl in a year where we'd have no idea that San Francisco was going to be this bound, especially not at the start of January? It's a big deal, but I really don't know where to lean. This is the true coin flip game, because are we going to get playoff Stafford so far that is playing well, ran over Tampa Bay for 2 quarters or for a full half that should have decided the game, but Tom Brady did Tom Brady things late, but just wasn't enough. But we saw that final drive, and we know what Stafford's capable of, especially with having talent like Cooper Kupp. It's a tough one, but I think D'Amico Ryans is going to overcome Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and the 49ers will upset the Rams at home and go back to the Super Bowl. I'm going to say the final score is 20-17. Sean.
Yeah, this is nearly impossible to come up with a prediction, just because you think that the Rams finally have the talent to actually overcome San Francisco, but San Francisco is the better coach team. Kyle Shanahan has proven to be a better head coach than Sean McVay, because Sean McVay has had more to work with than Kyle Shanahan, yet Kyle Shanahan is 1 win away from being in more Super Bowls than Sean McVay. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan's on a 6-game winning streak shows that Kyle Shanahan might end up being the better coach because he's done more with less. And here's the thing. I thought the 49ers were going to lose to the Rams week 18. Thought they're going to lose to the Cowboys. And I thought they're going to lose to especially thought they're going to lose to the Packers. I am still stunned that they lost that the Packers lost that game. So for this NFC title game, I am not going to go against the 49ers here because like I said, I thought they're going to lose to the Cowboys, thought they're going to lose to the Packers, thought they were going to lose to the Rams. But I think that this team is extremely well coached. DeMeco Ryans, whoever needs a head coach, for the love of God, look at DeMeco Ryans. I don't care what happens on Sunday. DeMeco Ryans should be an NFL head coach next season. Cameron, your team should probably get on that too. Just saying.
Look, I don't even want to start with where the Raiders are leaning right now. I'm ready to hop off the fan train. If what is being rumored and the interview they just requested yesterday goes through and that's the guy they want, I think I'm just gonna be an NFL fan next year. I'm gonna be Rob Lowe wearing the NFL hat next season.
Well, then you can just become a full Saints fan. So there you go.
They're in more shambles than the Raiders
Yeah,
are right
with what
now.
coach?
They've got 84 million over the cap?
This is true, but I think that the 49ers are going to win this game in overtime. I think that this game is going to win overtime. And yes, the 49ers are not going to score a touchdown on the first possession of overtime. I think it's going to go deep into overtime where nobody's going to complain about the overtime rules. But it's going to be very even. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's going to make some big plays. But I think the 49ers interior pass rush will be a little too much for Stafford to get into a rhythm throughout the game. And I think Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell will just make one extra play to set up a game-winning field goal. I think the 49ers win this game. I think it's even low scoring than 20-17. I'm going to say 17-14 in overtime. This is going to be not an ugly offense game. This is going to be a very fun defensive game. There's going to be a lot of great defensive plays. It's going to be very entertaining. Points are going to come into premium, but I think it's going to be a very tightly contested game. This is going to be an incredible NFC Championship game, and I'm very excited for it.
Now, Michael, given the flag in your background, I'm assuming that this is a game of both evils for you. So you probably don't even have a prediction because you want both teams to lose. But in all seriousness, who you got?
Something I want to point out is that Matthew Stafford, he did tie for the league lead in interceptions this year with Trevor Lawrence with 17. He had 41 touchdown passes, so that 41-17 touchdown ratio doesn't look that bad when you put that next to it. But that being said, against the 49ers this year, there's been good Matthew Stafford and bad Matthew Stafford. He has 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in 2 games against the 49ers this year. So it's going to be we've all talked at length about how Jimmy G needs to minimize mistakes to win this game. But for the Rams to win this game, they need good Matthew Stafford, not gamble Matthew Stafford. Well, that's just kind of how he plays, but they don't need bad Matthew Stafford, because the Niners have been one of those teams that have had his number this year. And something I want to also point out for the 49ers, a key injury, Trent Williams sprained his ankle last week, and signs point that he might be able to go, but we don't know that status hasn't come out yet of whether he's going to play or not. And it's still early. It's still Friday morning. And another factor is that the Niners are going to take over SoFi again. So I wonder how that plays into the Rams just on offense, having to deal with the crowd noise in their own stadium. It's something that I know I'll be keeping an eye on, but I'm kind of going to agree with you guys. Something as talented as this Rams team is, which they are unbelievably talented. They're super team talented, but I think the 49ers are going to pull this out. I think Jimmy G is going to do just enough. I think Elijah Mitchell is going to have a big game, and I think that defensive front's going to step up. I'm going to give it a 24-21.
Brenden, are you going to be the lone wolf here and pick the Rams, or are the 49ers going to walk in the SoFi, your hometown of Los Angeles, and get to the Super Bowl, stay in LA and play in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I can't believe that so far it's been unanimous. I mean, props to the 49ers for what they've done. They've gone on an absolute Cinderella run, and that's what it is. Looking at at where this team was going into the postseason. But there, I can't see bad Matthew Stafford coming out and playing this game. I just can't. He's been one of the most, if not the most clutch quarterback in his career, especially during his tenure in Detroit. Having seen this team twice, I think they're going to learn a lot more. I think that Sean McVay is going to have to go deep into his bag of great plays. I think we're going to see a lot of trick plays against two very solid teams against two good defenses. I got another close one, but I think I am going to be the only one on the island. I'm going to say the Rams win it in the last few seconds of regulation. I think that Matthew Stafford will find a way to connect with Cooper Kupp. And because of that, I think that the Rams will come out with a win. We're not going to need any overtime. We're not going to need any boo-boo Mickey Mouse overtime rules because that's what they are. The game's going to end in regulation. I think Stafford will find Cooper Kupp to put the Rams in field goal position with the game tied. I think they're going to score a field goal with maybe about 5 seconds left, and the Niners just won't be able to do anything about it. I'm going to say that the Rams do take the win 27-24.
Wild. Just wild. Just wild stuff from Brenden Martin. Bold takes from everybody across the board, but we'll see when it plays out on Sunday. Let's shift from the gridiron to the racetrack, as Sean and I were just at Phoenix Raceway for NASCAR's final 2 days of next-gen testing. A lot of stuff to be learned about the new car still, and we're only 9 days away from competition. So most drivers have said they're comfortable with getting this thing in the competition, but Joey Logano was on the exact opposite front, saying he's not comfortable just yet. But, as long as most drivers are comfortable with it, I think NASCAR will say, all right, let's get the ball rolling here. But Sean, what were some of the most important things or interesting things you learned over Tuesday and Wednesday?
I didn't know what to expect coming into NASCAR next gen testing, but the biggest thing that I learned, and I actually wrote a story about this that you can check in on the site Substack, is that this next car really levels out the playing field of NASCAR. Because in the past, you've essentially have had the big teams like Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Busch, not Kyle, Joe Gibbs Racing. I apologize.
Getting Truck Series teams in there, are we?
In my Xfinity recap, in my Xfinity live tweets and recaps, I get that wrong. Unfortunately, I apologize. Kyle Busch does race for Joe Gibbs Racing, but has his own. Okay, it's a little confusing. But anyways, Joe Gibbs Racing and Team Penske. So those are really the top three, and you can even throw in Stewart-Haas Racing in there, although they were definitely a mid-team last year. But they were able to supply their own parts. They were able to have the funding to get those own parts over the other teams. But now it's a single supplier, which essentially means that all the teams are kind of on a level playing field. Now, obviously, teams can still make adjustments within a certain limit, and they can obviously figure out to get the most out of their car. But as Michael McDowell said, this Front Row Motorsports, which is the quintessential mid-team in NASCAR, is able to close the gap between they and the top teams. So with this, you're going to see not only mid teams may be able to sneak in the top 10 a little more, but as Daniel Suarez talked about, this is an opportunity for new teams to get in the sport. Obviously, last year was the debut of Trackhouse Racing and 2311 Racing. They're not able to really come into the sport if not for this next-gen car, which gives them the opportunity to be more competitive immediately. Trackhouse will be interesting to watch this year with Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez being the two drivers. And then for 2311 Racing, you got veteran Kurt Busch joining Bubba Wallace over there. So these two new teams are already starting to be more competitive and start to build a legit driver lineup over there. Now, obviously, parts are in short supply, obviously. Global trade has been a little bit in shambles as of late. That could be a whole Fruit Loop segment in and of itself. But the fact that the playing field is much more level is going to provide a lot more parity, and it's going to make race weekends more interesting because I don't think that Kyle Larson is just going to flat out dominate about a third of the races like he did last year. I think you're going to maybe see a little more Cinderella stories this year. Maybe Tyler Reddick makes the round of 12, round of 8. Who knows? Just an example. So that's the biggest thing I learned was the competitive gap is shrinking. And the other thing I got to say is I have been to quite a few races at this point. I've been to 3 race weekends in Las Vegas Motor Speedway, 2 race weekends at Phoenix Raceway, and all 5 of those events, I did not need any audio protection at all, even being on the gravel right next to the track. But with these motors, oh yeah, I need my noise canceling earbuds if I'm going to be on the track, because these motors are loud. It is crazy loud, where my head almost exploded being right next to Joey Logano just on pit road. It was crazy how loud it is, and when we go to the Busch Clash next week, people might want to bring some ear protection. Just saying, because it's going to be stupid loud in the speech bubble, which is what NASCARism declared the LA Coliseum as.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard for the sound to escape at Phoenix Raceway, and there's still some open space there, but the Coliseum sound's just going to keep bouncing off those bleachers. It's going to be quite the show. And yeah, if you're sitting like in row 10, yeah, you're definitely going to need some type of ear protection. If NASCAR doesn't send out the warning, let me be the first. But another thing I learned at the track, it may not be sort of a competitive balance. Like, hey, Michael McDowell wins at Pocono, but I think if you look at tracks that are more dependent on the driver, like the Bristols, the Martinsvilles, that's when you'll see the true talent start to rise. And yeah, I do think Tyler Reddick, and especially Larson talked about Reddick being one of the faster guys as runs got on, is that Reddick is getting accustomed to these cars. And Reddick, guys like Tyler Reddick are going to have full practices and qualifying the season where, yeah, sure, they might just be a shakedown, 15-minute little session that they have. But that's 15 more minutes of practice than they had all of last year and all of 2020. So I'm very interested to see if drivers that maybe struggled a little bit in all 3 series, whether having just those little shakedowns are going to help them during, qualifying and help them out during the race. So we just haven't seen. There's been 3 years of drivers who have come into the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series, and have obviously struggled because they're just going into the race and there's no real warm up. There's no, breaking the ice, getting to the speedway. It's just get to the speedway and let's go race these things. So I'm curious about that. And then also the digital rear view cameras seem to be a topic of discussion throughout the weekend. I definitely asked about it to a couple drivers. Larson said it was a cool tool, but yeah, if he had the choice between both one or the other, he'd definitely choose the mirror. Joey Logano was, if he was kind of just lukewarm to it, they didn't really hate or love it. Tyler Reddick, though, absolutely hates the review camera. He wanted to rip it out because of the positioning that Austin Dillon had it set up in. Called himself old school, but I don't know. Gentlemen, Michael, how do you feel about, because we're used to having mirrors in our cars, but obviously, cars use digital review cameras when they're backing up and trying to park in their parking spot. But how about for full on race when you're going 180, 190 miles per hour, and maybe what if the camera kind of has a malfunction? So many variables that could happen with a digital camera. But do we like this idea of not only having the mirror as an option, but also this rear view camera?
So that was my first thought with this mirror is what if it malfunctions during the race? What do you do there? That was my first thought with this camera. And then, yeah, you guys mentioned Tyler Reddick saying, no, I hate it. I want to rip it out of the car. But I think it's a cool idea. I'm just curious what happens when it inevitably something goes wrong on, lap 200 and like, do go to pit road and get a new camera? I don't know how. I don't know
I think you just
how
use the
it's going
mirror.
to work. Does it?
I
Wait.
think
So does the car?
they
So
have both. It's gonna be both the mirror and the camera in the car.
Oh, I was under the impression it was just the camera.
Yeah, no, they'll have both in the car. Brenden, what do you think? If you were a driver, would you like having that option, but knowing that there's a potential concern that the camera may lag, it may lag, there might be a malfunction. Like, would you just prefer the traditional mirror? Think you're muted, buddy.
Sorry about that. Personally, not knowing where the mirror and the camera essentially are exactly placed, I would err more towards the regular mirror because like what we've all known and seen whenever driving a car, the mirror, unless a mirror shatters, it's going to be foolproof. Whereas anything electric, anything digital, they always run the risk of it breaking. And if that breaks, who knows what else can break in a car? Obviously, cars, especially in racing, one little thing that breaks can throw it off in its entirety. And that can really ruin a guy's race. Like Michael said, what if it just stops working in the middle of a race, in the middle of a green flag run, where you just came out of the pits? Obviously, you're not going to want to pit again to lose your track position. What happens there? So if listening to what Tyler Reddick has said and what other drivers feel about the car, I would give them the option of whether or not they want to have it on there or not. Now, obviously, having both there is obviously a good sign. But whether or not maybe a driver can turn it off or they can just remove it entirely, those are all those customizable options I think should be there for the drivers to make them as comfortable as possible. Because, like I said, if one little thing goes wrong, a car can be sent careening into a wall and cause a huge crash with multiple cars involved. And I don't think that's what anyone wants to see right now. Especially what NASCAR doesn't want to see with these brand new cars right now. They want to see them running pristine and running as strong as they can. So I think allowing the drivers to have those customizable options will be great.
All right, gentlemen. Here's something that doesn't make sense to me at all. Devin Booker is averaging 25 points per game this season, shooting 44% on around 20 field goals per game, shooting 38% from beyond the arc on 7 attempts. Meanwhile, Andrew Wiggins only takes 5 3-point attempts per game and is shooting 41%, only takes 14 field goal attempts per game and is shooting 48%. Sure, he's having the best field goal percentage and 3-point shooting percentage of his career, but that comes with a small sample size. He's only averaging 18.1 points per game, yet will be starting over Devin Booker in the All-Star game. Another year where Devin Booker, who has the numbers and the skill to be a starter every year, and it's just another year where Booker is not an all-star starter. I mean, thank God he's an all-star, I guess, but it's only been one time in his career where Booker's been actually voted into the all-star game and wasn't a replacement like he was in the 2019-2020 season. Michael, help me figure this out, because I've always said I've hated fan voting when you got teams aligning with each other in Major League Baseball. While it's fun, to have that interaction between fan bases, we've had all-star games where almost the entire Cubs infield started.
Or the entire Kansas City Royals team.
I just don't understand why it seems that the NBA contingency has no love for Devin Booker. I've watched the Clippers and Suns Western Conference Finals last year. I have no hatred for Devin Booker. I enjoy watching Devin Booker play. So I don't get why the rest of the NBA world doesn't hold Devin Booker at that standard.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Make it make sense, please. This is not, as full disclosure, I'm a Suns fan, but this is not dumb Suns fan talking. This is just objectively speaking, where is that respect? What more does Devin Booker have to do? He's the best player on the best team in the NBA, coming off leading his team to its first, not only its first NBA Finals appearance since 1993, its first playoff appearance since 10 years after just the most miserable decade in the abyss a professional sports team can have. Coming off a 21-win season and a 19-win season prior to their bubble season, and they're running the bubble in this last run. I don't know. Make it make sense. I feel like we've been waiting like 7 years. I feel like that's been a running gag every year. Is this Andrew Wiggins' breakout year? Like, I feel like that's a gag. I feel like this is a meme that's been a meme the start of the NBA season every year since Andrew Wiggins got drafted. And no disrespect to Andrew Wiggins. He's a good player, and he's in a great role as the third or fourth best player on that Golden State Warriors team, besides, behind Steph and Klay Thompson now that he's back in Draymond. He doesn't have to be the scorer. He isn't the star. He doesn't have to score 25 a game. So he's in a great situation. Yeah. Should Andrew Wiggins be an all-star? Sure. Why not? He's had a great season, and he's shooting a career best for 48.3%. Yeah, he's had a good year, but should he be a starter over the best player on the best team in the NBA? No, it's ridiculous. And we were talking about Fruit Loops of the Week at fan votes. Klay Thompson, I'm so happy he's
I'll
back.
let you
I'm so
expand on that more when we get to our segment.
All right, I will do that. I will save it for then.
But
Klay
Brenden,
Thompson,
we got.
Hang on, sorry.
Oh.
Klay Thompson, great, fantastic. I'm so happy he's back. But the fact that he had more votes than Devin Booker throughout this process when he hadn't played a game in 2 years until recently.
Brenden, what doesn't make sense to me as well, we're talking about voting. Apparently, the players voted as well, and 2 of them voted for Ben Simmons, who hasn't played a single minute of basketball this season, and 25 voted for Kyrie Irving, who's only played around 20 games this season. Is this a troll job by these players? I don't understand. We could talk about Devin Booker, Andrew Wiggins all day and how stupid fan voting is, but why do we have players seemingly trolling the league when we got votes for Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving?
I think in terms of the players, it's all a chess game with them. Obviously, you're not gonna put in a Ben Simmons or a Kyrie Irving who have not played or barely played this season in an All-Star game. But with the way that the league works and with these players, they're all it's a very close-knit group of a very close fraternity of players that a lot of them are very cool with each other, off the court as well. And as we see every offseason, when the word tampering comes about, all of them are trying to get players onto their team. All of them are trying to, get their front office to move heaven and earth to get a star player like a Kyrie Irving or a Ben Simmons on the team, because that certainly has been happening already this year. And I think those votes just solidify that. I think these votes are players trying to get on their good side, and maybe if things go sideways on their team that they are now, that their team can make a push for them, and all of a sudden they become a championship contender. But to go off of what Michael said, yeah, the fan voting especially has been an issue. It's always been an issue. As much as I love Alex Caruso, he's not an all-star caliber player. Maybe one day he will be, but he's not. He's a very solid role player, but he should not be getting or all-star votes the caliber he has. But because he is a fan favorite, because he is one of the greatest memes the league has right now, everyone loves him, and everyone would love to see him in an all-star game. But the NBA has to find a better system. I know getting the fans involved in a process like this all-star weekend should be something that the fans have a say in and have some part in, but there's got to be a better way to do it. There's got to be I don't know, maybe make fan votes worth less than what they are right now. Maybe let coaches and maybe general managers, maybe let their votes have a little bit more say, because chances are they'll be a little bit more unbiased, despite those coaches will probably still want to vote for their own players. But I don't know what else we need to see to show that the current system does not work. Devin Booker should be an all-star. like Michael said, the best player on the best team. And Andrew Wiggins, obviously, props to him. He should be an all-star. I think he should be an all-star, but he should be an all-star coming off the bench. Because when you have a name like Devin Booker, who has already seen his fair share of all-star game snubs, I don't see how you don't put him as a starter this year.
Now, Sean, I want to ask you about, basketball and, legitimacy when it comes to honors and all that, but you're still on the train that Nikola Jokic is guaranteed the MVP this season, even though the Nuggets are sitting 6th in the Western Conference, while a team like Memphis with John Morant is 3rd, sitting with a record of 33-17. So I don't know. Maybe you're one of the guys that voted Andrew Wiggins over Devin Booker, because that's what the Jokic and Morant take is like for you.
You need to settle down there. Also, I have the last couple months, you're also misquoted me. I have not been preaching that Nikola Jokic should be the MVP. What I've been preaching is that
you said he's the best player in the league, which
are you
telling me those are mutually
There is
exclusive?
A difference. There is a big difference because John Morant's the MVP. But Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA, period. Plain and simple, end of story.
This man's saying this when guys like Kevin Durant and Giannis exist.
I'm sorry. There is no better player in the NBA than Nikola Jokic, and I will die on this hill. The man is on pace for the best PER in NBA history. NBA
There he goes
history.
with PER. Like anybody gives a damn about PER.
It's considered the defining stat for NBA players and their efficiency. Okay.
Lord.
So let me just take away that. Nikola Jokic this season is not only a elite scorer where he averages 26.2 points per game. He also averages 13.8 rebounds. He also averages 7.6 assists. The guy is an elite scorer, an elite defender, an elite rebounder, an elite point guard. He does everything perfectly. He is the best all-around player, period. Some players may be a little bit better scorers. Some players may be a little bit better scoring. Some players may be a little better rebounding. Some players may be a better passer. But there's no one that's better than Nikola Jokic in all three things.
Guys, do we agree, Sean?
Guys,
Jokic is the best player in the NBA. I like Nikola Jokic, but when I watch guys like Kevin Durant and Giannis and how they're able to run the floor, score at the rate they do, and not to mention just take over a game single-handedly with their speed and their length, Jokic is in the elite, but he's not the elite.
Yeah, Jokic is not as flashy as those guys, so of course you're gonna go with them because Jokic is not as flashy. Oh, and guess what? Nikola Jokic has led the Nuggets to a 6 seed right now because guess what? The Nuggets have been playing a G League team this season. Like, could we stop with the disrespect? So
have the Clippers, but you don't see me clamoring that Amir Coffey should be MVP.
You're really gonna compare?
I watched 10 years of Suns G League teams. You didn't see me asking Archie Goodwin to be MVP here.
We're really comparing Archie Goodwin and Amir Coffey to Nikola.
Well, you just called the Nuggets team with Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon the G League team.
You're not the Nuggets are not a G League team if they have a superstar like Jokic.
Outside
and you guys are
of Jokic,
in the playoffs right now.
G League players.
You guys are in the playoffs right now. You guys are at a G League team.
The best player in the league.
How are the Nuggets a G League team when they're 6th in the West?
If they were a G League team, they'd be last in the West.
I said, bruv.
Aaron Gordon is a G League player.
When he's the number 2 guy in a team, there's a problem.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, Jamal Murray's hurt.
How?
It's not like your roster is bereft of talent.
Disrespect for Aaron Gordon, though, saying that he's not. He's saying that if he's the number 2 guy, then that's horrible.
Nuggets are relying on Campazzo, and he has the worst plus minus of any player on a winning
Should have
team.
just gave Bobo more minutes.
Yeah.
Thank God they got Bryn Forbes. Thank God they got Bryn Forbes.
Listen, I'll just say that. I mean, what were we just talking about in the last segment? The All-Star break. It's not even the All-Star break. Why is this a conversation? Look, we'll get. Obviously, people like to meme on the big media like ESPN for talking about MVP literally as soon as the season starts. There is still a lot of time left. MVP is nowhere near decided. If I were to have to pick today, I would pick Jokic just because of what he's done, for that team. But it's not a no-brainer. Ja Morant's right there. Ja Morant is leading a better team right now.
Just
right there. There's still
33-17 with the Memphis Grizzlies of all teams.
Yeah, Cam, why are we bringing up MVP in January? I don't get it.
Oh my God, you're the one that just texted the entire group saying, "Guys, Jokic is the best player I've ever watched in my lifetime." LeBron can never come
said
close
that
to this
anywhere
guy.
in this chat, and we were talking about Devin Booker, and you just brought up Nikola Jokic. So very interesting move on your part.
Were you the one that brought up Nikola Jokic?
No, I didn't.
All right. Let's get to our Fruit Loops of the week. Everyone's favorite segment. I don't even know. I think Sean should be it this week. Should be mine. But there have been worse takes this week, and I'm going to start with the Baseball Writers Association, or whatever you want to call it, the Old Men's Club, the Old Gentlemen's Club, the Baseball Writers Association of America. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are not Hall of Famers, solely based on the reason that apparently these guys don't have high moral values, and they're guys that are not. They don't have David Ortiz's personality. They're not media darlings. David Ortiz has had a handful of allegations of him using steroids. Do I believe he was using them? I don't know, because I don't have the evidence. Bonds and Clemens were caught. I know you can say what happened in the court cases and whatever. But the Hall of Fame is baseball's history. It's baseball's museum. It's where you go to see the history of baseball. It is not a high moral ground place. It's not a place where the nicest guys go in. It's not the place where the cleanest of players go in, because I bet you there are guys that played in the MLB by the time when there was still segregation going on and really clamoring that black players shouldn't be in the MLB. They're in the Hall of Fame. Not having Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens in the Hall of Fame is pretty much baseball rejecting its peak form. Baseball's pretty much saved thanks to the steroid era. That's where it hit its peak popularity. Guys like Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Those are the guys. Why is it that baseball will reject guys like Clemens and Bonds, knowing full and well that they were the ones clamoring for steroids in baseball and wanting guys to use steroids to increase the popularity of baseball? Everyone wanted to see everyone hit 70 home runs in a season, and it happened. And now you want to sit here and say all these years later that, oh no, we don't actually like that. We don't want to recognize that in our Hall of Fame. It's just ruining the credibility of baseball. I think baseball's credibility is already tainted. It's the most tainted history in all of sports, going back to the days of segregation and not having black players play at the highest level of baseball, even though there are a ton of guys that were talented enough to be there. And then you have the steroid era where guys were, using performance-enhancing drugs to create these ridiculous stats that we still have today. The Bonds numbers, the Sosa numbers, the Mark McGwire numbers. Now you gotta also state that, hey, Bonds was a Hall of Famer already without the steroids, but he was pressured into using them because Mark McGwire and Sosa were getting all the love while Bonds was hitting 40 home runs, 120 RBIs, batting 300, and had 30 stolen bases and was finishing 8th in MVP voting. So, I mean, he's kind of just when you're pigeonholed into having to use steroids because MLB won't recognize your greatness, what else is there to do? So I really it's hard for me to have love for baseball at this time. And, with the MLB currently in a lockout right now. I mean, this seems like the death year of baseball. It seems like it's where it's trending toward, and especially with this Hall of Fame vote and only David Ortiz getting in, baseball's just not sitting right with me right now. But Michael, I want to hear your stance on this. I've kind of talked to Sean and Brenden about it a lot, but what's your stance on how this has played out?
Well, so it's similar to what you're thinking. Before this year, I didn't want Bonds, Clemens. I didn't want any of them in. I was steadfast in my belief that I didn't want any of them in because of their their tainted legacies. But I came around to it this year finally. If you're exactly right, is that the Baseball Hall of Fame is a history of the game of baseball. It showcases baseball's history. Were there guys in there that probably took steroids? Yes. Or not, anabolic steroids that we're talking about from the steroid era or whatever performance enhancing it is. Or just there's overall just bad people in the hall. I put it in our chat. Ty Cobb. Let's use Ty Cobb as an example. One of the greatest players to ever live. And also a horrible human being. A guy that used to stab his metal cleats in the people's ankles on purpose when he'd slide into second. Overall bad guy. Or guys in the 70s and 80s using, Sean, very very racist too. And or guys in the 70s and 80s using whatever drugs that were prevalent at the time. But baseball is the National Baseball Hall of Fame is the story. It shows the story of baseball. Barry Bonds is one of the biggest parts of the story of the steroid era, an era which like you said saved baseball. What would have become of baseball without the steroid era? The strike basically killed baseball, and then the steroid era brought the fans back, and then brought new fans back in wider numbers. Now during the 98 home run chase, I was about 4 months from being born. So of course I didn't get to see it firsthand, but I remember hearing stories from my dad that they used to break into programming on ESPN just because Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa was that bad. And Bonds was thought, I need to use it so I can catch up to these guys. And that was just from books I've read or stories that I've read on the steroid era, that it was just like widespread pressure that you have to use to keep up. But back to Bonds, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent. Yeah, he should be in. If David Ortiz is in, Bonds should be in. Roger Clemens should be in. If David Ortiz goes in, they should all be in. No question about it. And no question about it. All of them should be in. David Ortiz, who doesn't love Big Papi? But just because he was great with the media, and Barry Bonds was known to be kind of a testy personality, that's why he doesn't get in. Is that a reason? We don't necessarily know that. What all the writers' reasons are, but no, if Ortiz is in, they should all be in.
Michael, while you're still speaking, who's your Fruit Loop of the week?
My Fruit Loop of the week is the Arizona Coyotes, which honestly they could be Fruit Loop of the week most weeks, but this week their plan to be wild. They work to get a stadium built, arena built in Tempe. That's never going to happen. They shouldn't do it. They shouldn't be delusional. Though the Coyotes,
if any team deserves this music, it's definitely the Coyotes.
Though the Coyotes, their fan base is in the East Valley. I don't know why. I've done research on it in the past, but I don't know off the top of my head why the Coyotes decided to build in Glendale when their fan base is in the East Valley. Their season ticket holders live in the East Valley, and it's difficult to get over to the Westgate, to get over to Glendale from Scottsdale, from Tempe, during rush hour. So I get the attendance woes, but the Coyotes, their idea this week is that for 3 to 4 years, they are going to share ASU's new multi-purpose hockey arena that seats 5,000 people.
Apparently it's 3,400.
Yeah, that number can come down. And that's their great idea. And this is after, by the way, they're going to be evicted from their arena because the city of Glendale is just tired of them. And this is also after they were nearly evicted in December because of an accounting error. Because they didn't pay, because they had debt that they didn't pay, and the Glendale city manager raised an alarm. And yeah. So in conclusion, yes. Like they could be most weeks. Don't worry, they'll never leave Arizona. They'll never leave Arizona. Gary Bettman won't ever allow that. But the Arizona Coyotes, Fruit Loop of the Week.
And you want to know the harsh truth about the Coyotes moving to that tiny arena is that we know they will not sell out every single game. There will be empty seats in a 3,400 seat arena for an NHL team. And that's just the sad reality with the Arizona Coyotes. You never want to see an NHL franchise, fall apart. But man, the Coyotes, ever since the Kings took care of business of them in 2012 in the Western Conference Finals, and especially since Shane Doan retired from the franchise, it's just been an absolute trash fire for Arizona. Maybe they should have just stuck with the Phoenix Coyotes and not reverted to the Arizona Coyotes. I don't know, just a random thought, but it's hilarious to see how bad the Coyotes can get as a franchise, especially when they don't have a superstar on their team either. But moving over to Sean Clark. Sean, who's your Fruit Loop of the week?
Well, I could talk about Evangeline Lilly, but I think it kind of speaks for itself. Comparing the vaccine to the Holocaust, I don't think I really have to say much more than that. But no,
Marvel needs a new Wasp.
Marvel does need a new Wasp. But considering she wasn't, a superstar in that role, I think that a recast is extremely doable. Just be good, because Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania is a big film considering who the villain of that movie is going to be. So that's kind of an important film for this new era of the MCU. However, the true Fruit Loop of the week, and I'm probably going to get backlash for this like usual, so I'm just going to say it. I am sick and tired of Bill Walton. Seriously. I am over this. I am over this. Listen, I've thought about this.
What do you, man?
Listening to Bill Walton call a game is
me pull my headphone out real quick with how dumb that take was. Come on, man. The man is a national treasure.
No, it's terrible. I hate it. Here's why. Bill Walton calling all these games is the equivalent of one of the NFL games on Red Zone every week being exclusively on Nickelodeon. That's exactly what this is.
I can't believe you've done this, Sean. How dare you?
Listen, call me professional, call me call me old school, but I'm sorry. I do not want to be watching a sports game and cringing at the announcing like I do 10 times every single time Bill Walton calls a game. I am sick and tired of it. It's not good for the entertainment value of the game because it distracts from the game itself. If you have to rely on Bill Walton making a game more entertaining, then I'm sorry, you maybe shouldn't be watching the game in the first place. I'm sorry. If you want something informal, then maybe make something like the Manning Cast with Bill Walton or something. But he should not be the main announcers of a game. There are so many. Dave Pasch doesn't even like calling games with them. You can tell that Dave Pasch does not like calling games with them. And if his play-by-play partner feels that way, then how should I feel? Because I care a lot about the announcing their games, because announcing really heightens the stakes of a game. For example, every time Duke plays a big game, I know Dan Schulman and Jay Billis are going to have a 10 out of 10 banger of a call on the game. In Dan Schulman, Dick Vitale, that is peak college basketball announcing right there. And you look at different sports, you have David Croft and Martin Brundle elevating the exciting moments of F1. You have Tony Romo going crazy during the Bills and Chiefs game. Okay, so you definitely have all these great announcers elevating the spectacle of the games, and Gus Johnson as well for whatever he calls. But Bill Walton is just rambling on about nonsense while the game is going on. And this past Tuesday, there was a top 10 matchup between Arizona and UCLA, and Bill Walton was just rambling about God knows what. And Dave Pasch is like, what does that have to do with the game?
Kareem Abdul, he keeps shouting out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Substack.
Yes, and don't even get me started on Bill Walton saying every single minute of the game, the Conference of Champions, the Conference of Champions. Stop.
Well, it is the Conference of Champions.
I know.
Stop saying it every minute. Then it's annoying. I'm sorry.
You gotta remind the SEC fans what's up.
Trust me, I'm a Pac-12 guy. I love the fact that the Pac-12 is conference champions, but stop saying it every minute, okay? It just sounds very annoying and pretentious, okay? Like I can't stand Bill Walton's calls and this Arizona UCLA game, which is all of the times even Dave Pasch was cringing and just disgusted at what Bill Walton was doing. It's not entertainment. It's just annoying. It detracts from the game. Just stop. But Bill, like if you want Bill Walton to be on the Pac-12 network, which is a very niche network, that's fine. But not ESPN. Just stop. Okay, I've had enough.
I think Brenden and Michael can agree that this is a certified bruh moment for the Fruit Loop segment. The first of its kind, really. Oh boy, Brenden, it's hard. It's hard to make your own self a Fruit Loop when you're talking about your Fruit Loop of the week, but I think Sean might be the Fruit Loop just for that.
Why?
The Fruit Loop Uno reverse card.
Look, man, Bill Walton is the one exception of the commentators because he's just sometimes you just need a personality that's just funny. But Bill Walton,
he's not funny. What are you talking about?
Okay, dude. You be superficial with your broadcast.
I like professionalism in broadcasts. Sorry, I'm old school. I apologize. Move on.
All right, Brenden, take us home. I don't know how you can do. I don't think you can do any worse than what we just had the last 5 minutes.
Well, Sean, I will say you can obviously everyone has their own specific ideas on and preferences on announcing and play-by-play announcing. But I think the real Fruit Loop of the week this week takes the cake, and that is Mark Martello, now former broadcaster, calling Montana State basketball. On Saturday, so about a week ago, he was calling the women's basketball game between Montana State and Portland State in the Big Sky. I'm getting these tweets from Joe Terry, who is a journalist for Big Sky Valhalla, where his tweets are outlined in an article by one Victor Flores of 406 MT Sports, where Terry was covering the game and where Martello said some very interesting things on the broadcast. If I can pull them up right here, he essentially said, "Here's a quote: Portland can get away with anything, could get whatever they want. Portland's like Antifa after a riot. They might go to jail, but they get out right away." This was him in reference to Portland State apparently getting away with foul calls.
I don't understand the just insane comparison, the asinine comparison. That just tells you, hey, either you're so stuck into watching either CNN or Fox News or whoever other radical side of the political spectrum you lean on. That's all you do when you're not doing your broadcast. To think of that comparison on the spot, you have to have that written down somewhere.
And so it goes further. Made a reference to Portland being like the south side of Chicago, which was very, and Joe Terry goes on to say it's pretty weird to go that far. The absolute insanely unprofessional and flat out, I'm going to say right now, flat out racist stuff that came out of this person's mouth is ridiculous. He even went as far as to, talk about specific players. going as far as to compare a Montana State, or I think it was a Portland State player who went to high school in Chicago, claiming that and claiming that the school was in the south side of Chicago, and went on a tangent about what the south side, those stereotypes about the south side of Chicago look like, when in actuality this player actually went to high school in the west side of Chicago. So his little tangent, not only was it wrong and insensitive, it was incorrect, which that in and of itself is probably, rule number one that in this little tangent that this guy had. These tweets that put out the what exactly he said, recordings went around. Eventually, he got fired. He got fired by Learfield, and he won't be calling games again. There's a really great column by one John Canzano of the Oregonian, who outlines what he saw. Martello came out with a response, to these not allegations, but a response to what he said. And one of his quotes was, "There will be no apology. No one will." So he is steadfast in what he said about these players. So yes, it was a Portland State player who he claimed went to a south side of Chicago school, when in fact their school was not on the south side. But to say this about a basketball team, particularly a women's basketball team, comparing the way they play to Antifa or any other controversial,
Again, that was like his punchline written down somewhere.
Absolutely, like he wanted to make that reference. Like there's no way that he just came up with that, just offhand. Like, but to say that, I mean, these are students, these are student athletes, these are 18 to 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds. Like they're playing basketball. Where does Antifa? You can say I don't care what your thoughts are on Antifa and all that ridiculous stuff that goes on in politics on every side, both sides, every side, however you want it. But to compare them to a group in general that has nothing to do with basketball, that already has controversy around it, it just doesn't help anyone, and it certainly doesn't help your case. So, Mark Martello, you are the Fruit Loop of the week.
And with that, we come to the conclusion of another week. The weekend is ahead of us. Formula E season actually starts today as well. Nick DeVry trying to win back-to-back world titles. And we got the Rolex 24 as well. Going to be following that very closely. And obviously the conference title games in the NFL. Oh, as well as WWE's Royal Rumble this Saturday as well. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Brenden and Michael for joining as always. Follow us on social media. If you're watching on YouTube, in the description. If you're not watching on YouTube, that's where it is. Go to YouTube and go subscribe. Go subscribe to the Substack and go follow us. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday to recap whatever madness occurs this weekend. For Sean Clark, I'm Cameron Richardson. Have a great rest of your day.